Well, it looks like we've reached the end. It's been a fun 108 episodes of such a great and influential series. What's that? I'm not supposed to be reviewing Judgment Day. So which episode am I... Oh, I see. Alright. I've Got Batman in My Basement is probably the most infamous episode of all of Batman the Animated Series. For such an infamous episode, it doesn't start off too bad with a standard heist that turns into Batman tangling with a vulture. Oh, but just you wait. As the episode goes through its runtime, it just gets progressively worse and worse for the most part. The main character this time around is a kid named Sherman who wants to be a detective. He sees a vulture not native to Gotham, which leads to him and his friend Roberta to follow it to its master, the Penguin. Unlike Rupert Thorne, I do like it whenever the Penguin shows up. Not to say I hate it when Rupert Thorne shows up, but I think the Penguin is more interesting. In this series, he has a very refined personality, and he often talks very eloquently, and despite his appearance, the Penguin is probably the most normal of Batman's villains, which is why I think they made a smart decision in making him a corrupt businessman in the New Adventures portion of the series. The Penguin is voiced by Paul Williams, who, like virtually every principal character of the show, is well cast. Unfortunately, in the main portion of the series, Penguin got the short end of the stick when it comes to episodes. He's one of the villains that doesn't have an absolute great episode. I do know that many people like the episode Birds of a Feather, but from the last time I saw it, I wasn't too impressed with it. I personally find Blind as a Bat is a stronger episode that features the Penguin, but both of those reviews are up ahead, especially Blind as a Bat. Anyway, the Penguin had his men steal a priceless jewel egg, which is why Batman is on his tail. Sherman and Roberta accidentally alert the Penguin to their presence, so Batman arrives to save the day and retrieve the egg, right? Please? Except he's hit with knockout gas. So he can make space. So Batman can make space for the kids for the rest of the episode and only show up at the end to save their butts. I think that's the main reason why this episode is so weak. There's no story reason for Batman to be taken out for most of the episode, and unlike most past episodes, the guest stars here don't go through any interesting character arcs. So the two kids make their way to the Batmobile with Batman. I swear, it's a true miracle that the kids or anyone else don't die in this scene. First of all, they touch all these controls on the Batmobile that can activate its weapons, such as missiles and flamethrowers. They also activate this gas to keep the Penguin's men away, and the kids naturally cover their mouths so as not to breathe it. When they manage to shut the door to the Batmobile, you can clearly see the gas is still inside the car, yet the kids are perfectly fine and not choking on the gas inside the car. Oh no, it doesn't stop there. Then they try to drive away and almost run over the Penguin in the process. Then Sherman brings Batman to his basement. Ha! Such a clever title. Then this is where all the logic just jumps out the window. Roberta tries to call the police, obviously a good move, right? But Sherman stops her and says that a detective must always protect his client's identity. What? First of all, it's true that the kids might not know this, but Commissioner Gordon probably wouldn't let his police officers unmask Batman. Secondly, the series is usually much more mature than this, and the kids would probably understand that being chased by a notorious criminal is not a game and could potentially be life-threatening. Yet, by the end of this episode, it becomes, no offense to this movie, pretty much Home Alone. Then the neighborhood jocks that make fun of Sherman get involved and help them fend off the Penguin. Probably the biggest insult to this episode is that both Batman and the Penguin especially are reduced to incompetence. The Penguin said that he would not allow himself to be defeated by a bunch of kids, and I have to agree. To be fair, it is Batman that defeats the Penguin, and not the kids, but the episode dragged it out twice as long having Batman be knocked out. It might have been more interesting if Penguin had some sort of, I don't know, plan that needed to be foiled besides looking for a priceless egg. There is a similar episode to this in Spider-Man the Animated Series, where a child ends up saving Spider-Man, but a slight improvement with that episode is that Spider-Man is not taken out of the plot and goes through some kind of character arc that is nowhere to be found in I've Got Batman in my basement. I could probably go on about this, but to be honest, I'm not even having fun making fun of this episode. It's not an unwatchable episode, but it's such a step down from what the series is normally like. If I liked Sherman at all before, it probably left me when his mom gets home and he asks Batman if he's single. I'm sure that was meant to be cute, but I sometimes don't have a sense of humor, and I didn't find that amusing. Animation here actually reflects how the episode goes itself. It starts off decent and all the characters look on model, but the animation and drawing gets progressively worse and worse as well. By the way, Batman sword fighting with the Penguin using a screwdriver is pretty lame. I said before that I thought Paul Williams was well cast, but I also can't complain about the voice acting from the kids either, as much as I didn't like them. Had they been given better dialogue and more interesting characterization, their voice acting would have complemented that. The musical score of this episode is on par with the rest of the series, though it also wasn't immediately noticeable. Overall, as I said before, this episode isn't impossible to watch, since it does have a few fun moments here and there, such as when the Penguin breaks into the house and tells his goons, "Gentlemen," and I use that term loosely, after you. I've got Batman in my basement. It gets, from me anyway, a 1 out of 5. Which might be too high or too low, but that's what I feel after watching it this time, 1 out of 5. So anyway, my prayers have been answered. I was able to get past this episode. To be fair, it wasn't a long review, but it's just a bad episode. I don't want to drag this out like the episode dragged this out. I'm sure this feeling of relief is because this episode... let me rephrase that. I'm not sure the feeling of relief I'm feeling right now is because this episode isn't good and it's over, or the more interesting option, or because we finally reached episode 14. A feeling of joy is almost literally swelling through me, because I can proudly say, next week, stay tuned for a review of the masterpiece Heart of Ice. And one final jab at this episode. Sherman presses the off button, and the thing starts up, which lets the Penguin know they're there. Great.